Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Amateur Eric, and for tonight I am going to show you all how I make fresh bread dough from scratch. Now, let me repeat that because making fresh making fresh bread dough or pizza dough, because those two things are very similar, is actually a real hot and debatable topic. Like, many people or many sources say that they have the ultimate recipe, or that will be good for everyone, or the only recipe that actually matters. And like most things in life, there's many different ways of making fresh bread dough. In my experience, my nonna, who of course was a Sicilian, she had her own recipe of making a Italian bread and many different types of bread. And even though she was very by the book in her recipes, she would always tell me that her way of making any type of bread wasn't the only way. So, yes, so I'm not here to show you, oh, all the other sources and videos that you guys saw are all wrong. I'm here to show you the only way, the only truthful way of making fresh bread dough. No, I'm here to show you how I make it. Now, this will not be the only way that I make fresh bread dough. This is one of the, and actually, well, as I said, I make many different types of fresh bread dough, but this is my favorite one, and this one I call and this one I call nuclear bread, because it has many different types of flour. So without further ado, let's get into action here. So, as you can see, I have a KitchenAid mixer. Now, I know a lot of the old school people, they make everything by hand, and of course, I applaud them for that. I know that making fresh bread in the old times was very difficult, although I'm sure they just saw it as a norm. In my generation, we're very spoiled with appliances like this. And yes, I too have made fresh bread and pizza dough from scratch also. But with a KitchenAid's a mixer, it's a lot easier. So we're going to do it this way. So as you can also see, or maybe not, but I have a kitchen scale. And if you're going to be measuring things or baking things by ounces rather than just using these cups, where for me personally, using a KitchenAid scale or a kitchen scale is a lot easier. So to do this, you just simply turn it on. Here, let me show you guys. Oh, almost fell off. Yeah, so the on button's right there. Now, once you put down your bowl or whatnot, it's gonna, a reading might come up. So what you'll want to do is hit the on button again so that you can clear it, and then you can get cracking. So for this recipe, we're going to begin with bread flour. It makes sense. If you want to make bread, use bread flour. Okay, so here we go. Now I just bought this bag recently, so I'm just opening it up right now. So, and as you can see, I have a Ziploc bag, and why I have that is because no matter how good flour bags are sealed, there's always going to be some residue flour somewhere. So, you know, I like to make things a little easier in regards to cleaning things up. So we'll do it this way. Whoop, gotta reset that, okay. Okay, here we go. All right, so what you'll want with the bread flour for this recipe is 20 ounces. So now, why I like to use a KitchenAid scale, the main reason is because, as we all know, that baking is a science, and although it's very simple to use these cups and just take a butter knife and just wipe away any excess flour, if there's an easier way rather than just the easy way, I usually go for it. And yes, I know that could be a lazy method, but you know what? At this day and age, things are rarely easy. So if there's an easier way, then just go for it. Alright, we're almost at that. And if you're a little over, it's not a big deal. Okay, we're just right there. Okay. So we're done with the bread flour. Now, you can use all-purpose flour if you want to. If you just want to make like regular bread, the problem with all-purpose flour is that it's used, as you can see, for all purposes. Whether you want to make bread or pizza, a dough, or muffins or whatnot, so it's really compatible with everything, which is not a bad thing. But if you want to make bread, you really should go with a bread flour. You know, it just makes sense, and there's a lot more. Gluten development, so you'll definitely want to take advantage of that. Oh, here, I'm sorry if I'm blocking you guys. Just want to put this back in my cabinet so that we can make rum. Okay. I will keep the all-purpose flour right here in case the measurements are not exactly what I want. Okay, so next we are going to need 5 ounces of whole wheat flour. So this is the part where it becomes nuclear bread, where I use many different types of flour, not just bread flour or all-purpose flour. So we'll need to reset the scale, because for this right now we're just going to need 5 ounces of whole wheat flour. Okay, we're just barely at 2. Okay, just do a little sprinkle. Yeah, if you don't have a kitchen scale, I would highly recommend getting one, so that you're not worried if what you're baking will come out how it should or not. And you can set it however you want. Oh, now we're at 5. Good. Whoop. Can't leave it in there. Okay. And And as you can see, I'm using different cups so that I don't get any whole wheat flour in the bread flour. I mean, I know that wouldn't be a horrible thing, but it's just best to keep flours, the different types of baking flours, separately. But so anyway, yeah, I would highly recommend getting a kitchen scale, especially if baking isn't one of your strong points. So now we have rye flour. Yep. Now I like to add the whole wheat flour for healthiness, of course. I mean, of course, everything should be taken in moderation, but whole wheat is definitely healthy for you. Rye, now with rye bread, I would say it is healthier than just regular white. I'm so sorry. It is healthier than regular white bread, but I would say that rye bread is probably more for decoration. I mean, of course it is healthier, but not so much. All right, so now we're just going to add 2 ounces of a rye flour. Okay. Okay, we're going to need a little bit more. Oh, we're at 1.34 ounces. So basically we have a pie measurement of rye flour. That's interesting. Oh, still not enough. Okay, we're getting there though. We're getting there, folks. And 208, that's okay. 208 is not a big deal. Oh, yeah. Sometimes with rye flour, you can smell. You know, I think that rye flour has a scent also. I can't describe what it is. If any of you guys are bakers yourself, then you know what I'm talking about. Oh, so the other thing I want to mention about using all-purpose flour is that, like, if you make fresh bread only using all-purpose flour, in my experience, even when it's cooked, it looks undone. And I've tried beating the dough down before I put it in the oven with an egg wash, and it still looks undone. So, yeah. That is, okay, so now we're going to add a tablespoon of sugar. I don't really think that the sugar in my experience, I really don't think it makes the bread taste sweet. I think that it adds a little bit of caramelization though, or I could be wrong, but I definitely, in my experience, cooking with or making fresh bread or pizza dough with a tablespoon of sugar somehow is beneficial. I don't know why. Now we're gonna, oh, I forgot the yeast. Okay. So this is what I typically use in both pizza dough and bread dough, active dry yeast. And I know that there's yeast specifically for a pizza. I've used it only once, and for some reason the dough came out extremely flat, which of course is not a bad thing if you want ultra thin pizza, but for me, I like a little bit more thickness in my pizza dough. So now, because I forgot about the yeast, I gotta go get a pair of scissors, so I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Thought I had everything, and nope. Forgot about the most important ingredients. Because if you don't have yeast, the bread will not rise. Cut off a little bit of that. Make sure that there's no excess. Whoop! And then I know that some people like to put a measurement like a tablespoon or a teaspoon of yeast, but for this recipe, I just use the whole packet, which is a 1/4 ounce or 7 grams. So that's all in there. Okay. All right. Now we're going to begin the process of mixing. Make sure this is plugged in properly. So now I know that a lot of people use the dough hook. I like to use that a little later. I like to use this, which is normally used for cake batter. But I like to use this because I feel like, in my experience, it spreads things out even more. Like, it spreads the yeast out. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Sorry if I'm blocking you. So we got that hooked in. Lock it up and put it to 1. Yep. So why I like that is because since that hook has more, well, for the lack of better words, hookness, I feel like it spreads things out more, like the yeast and all the different types of flours, so everything will be spread out more evenly. So we'll let that go for a few minutes. Alright. Maybe not even a few minutes, because it really doesn't take that long to spread things out. I'm sorry if my speech problem is getting a little annoying. I have found other ways of controlling it, but sometimes it still gets the best of me. So we're gonna shut down the scale because we don't need it anymore. It's all done. Excuse me. All right. So that's done. Shake off some of the excess flour here. Oh. Okay, leave that for right now. Now, here I'm going to add a teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, a lot of people think that if you add salt to flour that has yeast in it, it will kill off the yeast, therefore defeating its purpose. Well, that will only happen if you mix the yeast with the salt directly. Like if you put both of them in a small bowl with like water and mix it up like that, well, yeah, then it will kill it. But if one or the other is already pre-mixed in the flour, then everything should be okay. So, all right, now we got that. I'm gonna put the salt away because we don't need it anymore. Okay, now we're gonna put a little bit of olive oil in it, and this will help. Brown out the dough and the final product. I'm using this type, extra virgin olive oil. You don't really need an exact measurement of this, just put a little bit in there. Yeah, all right. Now, what we're gonna do is we're going to take the dough hook that I was talking about earlier, put that in there, Make sure it's in there, nice and cured. Lock it up. Before we turn it on though, I gotta show you guys the water that I use. Now I do use a tap water, but I use a filter. So just because I like using it. If you can make water any more cleaner, then just go for it. Now, this is something that you really don't need a measuring cup for. And now, of course, if any of you guys use a measuring cup for water, in this case, you know, that's perfectly fine. For me, I just use a regular large cup. Now, I don't use hot water because, in my experience, hot water will kill the yeast, or maybe I'm just doing something wrong with it, because I do know several people who use hot water and their bread always comes out fine. So maybe I'm doing something wrong, or you know what, there's other factors. You know, the humidity in the air could be high or low, you know, or the altitude of where you're at. I don't know. But I use room temperature water, so we're gonna go with that. Okay, now for me, I add little by little of water, a little bit of a drizzle there. Now I know that you guys can't see this. I'm sorry that I don't have a clear bowl, but you guys saw what I was putting in the bowl. So once everything is all good, then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, already we're getting a little bit of a crumble there, so that's good. I'm gonna add a little bit more. Now, in some cases, I have added like a little too much water, where it then looks like pancake or waffle dough. It's no issue. All you got to do is just add more flour. So, yeah, not a problem. Okay. Now it's best not to add all the water at once, and of course I do know other people who do, and it comes out just fine. But like I said at the beginning of the video, this is my way of doing it. So, yeah. And whenever I add water, I don't add a little bit in one area. I like to move the cup around so that little areas can get all soaked up. You know, it kind of reminds me of making fresh pasta, where you have like a little mountain of flour and you have a couple of eggs in the middle, and you beat the eggs with a fork and you add a little bit of that excess flour around the eggs. So this is pretty similar. Adding more water there. Okay. Alright. Now I have the KitchenAid mixer on the slowest speed. Once the flour becomes official dough, when you get to the kneading process, you might have to increase the speed, or you may not. Okay, it's coming out pretty crumbly, so we're going to have to add more water. Because of that, now since it was coming out a little bit crumbly, I increased the speed of the water going in so that it can absorb more. Because if you keep adding little by little, then it's just going to come out looking like cereal. I made that a mistake on my first try, and oh god, I was upset. All right, add some more here. All right, it's coming out pretty good. As you guys have seen, I really want to make sure that I don't get any excess flour anywhere, but sometimes there's a flour at the very bottom, and if ever I put water directly on there and then the hook will catch it at the wrong time, then flour will just spurt out like a volcano, and it's like, for crying out loud. Alright, I'm going to have to add a little bit more. Yep, it's coming out pretty good. So while that's kneading, I want to show you guys this other type of flour that I use, semolina flour. Now, this flour is used for many things, but as you can see, it's used for pasta also. But what you can use it for in the cases of making fresh bread or pizza dough is that you can use it on the bottom of your baking rack, so that when you pull it out, you kind of have a little bit of flavor on the bottom. Well, guys know, like, sometimes when you have like Italian bread or pizza, there's a little bit of like dust on the bottom. Well, it's usually this semolina flour. So now, of course, I won't be mixing that into the dough here. Here, we're gonna have to adjust this a little bit. And yes, I did wash my hands, in case any of you guys were wondering, but I gotta add a little bit of water because there's some flour that's not getting hydrated there. Alright, here we go. Okay. I think that did the trick. I hope it did. And if not, I'll just have to add more flour, which is not a big deal. Okay, yeah, and I still have some water left over. I think that did do the trick, so now we just gotta let that knead for a little bit, and we should be good to go. If I had to add any flour, I would use the all-purpose flour, but that won't be necessary, so I'm gonna put this away. Yep, the different types of flour is what I love, which is why I call it nuclear bread. Okay, so here, put the semolina flour away also, because I won't need it until tomorrow. Excuse me. I just had that out so that you guys could see what that's all about. Okay. Alright, I think it's done kneading. Okay, now, the reason why I'm wearing these is because we're going to be oiling this up. I know that there is some olive oil in the dough itself, but here, turn that off. Okay, now here, before I oil it down, let me show you guys what it looks like. Come on, there we go. So all that flour, it looks like this now. Yep, but this is only the first stage, and I will post a picture in the comments as to what the bread will look like. But for right now, we're gonna oil this bowl here. Okay, and we're gonna use the dough itself as a sponge to oil up the bowl. So just in case if there's any first time bakers on this, it's gonna go, I mean after the bowl is oiled up and then the dough itself is coated in oil, I'm gonna be putting some plastic wrap on the bowl so that it can rise overnight. Just take these things off here first. Okay, you guys are super awesome. Let me tell you, you guys are so patient with me and everything, so I really appreciate it. So we're gonna use this saran wrap that I got from Costco. As you can imagine, they give you a lot. Now, typically, when people are using a KitchenAid mixer, or if they are using a bowl and kneading it by hand, they'll just transfer it to another bowl because they're making a lot more. But if you're just making one loaf like me, you should just use the bowl that you already had used, so that you don't have a lot of dishes to wash. Okay, so that's all covered up so that it could rise. I'm going to let it rise overnight. Okay, yep, there it is right there. Alright guys, like I said, I will post a picture after the bread is all cooked, so that you guys can see the final product. And thank you guys for watching. If you want to, you can like this video or subscribe to my channel for more content. And if you guys have any ideas or any of your own ideas on how to make fresh bread or pizza dough, let me know in the comments. You all have a good night now.